Welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. We're going to have a wonderful show. Stay tuned. Good morning and welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. I'm your host, Quandra, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation with Joseph Gaskins, who is the co-founder of the Maryland Business Clergy. And he also is on the transition team with our governor-elect, Wes Moore. So let's bring in Joe Gaskins. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Hey, Quandra. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to a fruitful day and a great show. So we're going to start off with introducing yourself.
Oh, I'm as you said, I'm the co-chair of the Maryland Business Clergy Partnership. I'm a business person, and I've been active in the nonprofit space, community space for over 38 years now. So it's a blessing just to be on. So, I count every day, one day at a time.
Well, that's
And
good to be.
try to do the best you can to help other people. That was my grandfather's slogan. He said if his favorite song was "If I Can Help Somebody." Growing up as a kid, he was blind. He was very, very much left face stamp on me as a person who was very spiritual, but also a person who was able to rise above his challenges. Being blind for as long as I knew him.
Oh,
so, yes.
That's impactful. That's impactful. Well, I was told by quite a few people in my family, because they were business owners and they worked in government or in the community. So one of the major things for me was, as you grow, you should be pulling someone else up.
Yes.
So that's always been instrumental to me as well. So we're going to...
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's the mission of the Maryland Business Clergy. I know you're going to roll into that.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, but the Maryland Business Clergy operates on the same premise. The Maryland Business Clergy is a bipartisan organization with a mission to bridge the gaps between businesses, faith-based organizations, elected officials, and governments. And our goal is to make a difference in every community throughout Maryland by changing the political climate through policy and advocacy to open the doors for all. So we leave no one behind.
Oh, okay. So you just took in so Westmore took in your model.
We have all stole that from somebody. But it's a good, I tell you, it's a good slogan and it's a good one to follow.
Yes, it is. So you did answer you did answer the first question I was going to ask. What is the mission of the Maryland Business Clergy and Partnership? So why was it actually created? I mean, what was going on that there was a need for this organization to exist?
It's created about 6 or 7 years ago. And the original founders of the organization thought that there was a need to get the churches involved, faith-based community involved. I mean, there were organizations already out there that were non-profit organizations. They were, you've got abundance of them, and and they've been committed to the community for a long time. But we found out that essentially, when you study the entire structure in the Black community, is that
Mhm.
the, while the faith-based organizations, the churches, on Sunday, you have your services, and
Mhm.
on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, there was a little void between the two.
Mhm.
And where businesses Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you saw them, and on maybe Saturday and Sunday you didn't see them effectively. So there is a little gap between
Mhm.
the two. And we thought that we could kind of bridge that gap between the leadership, and you had to start with the leadership,
Mhm.
the leaders, then and the business leaders. Then we could start to really make a huge impact in our African American communities, and we expanded beyond that, became uh, a larger component, and decided that let's go for the entire Maryland business clergy
Mhm.
arena and hit the entire state. So right now, it's an organization that includes basically every church organization in the state who wants to be a part of that particular mission. And so, we celebrating the fact that we're still here.
Mhm.
We're making a difference in the community, and we're looking forward to 2023.
Okay. And what are the organization's community initiatives and priorities for 2023?
Well, we have quite a few initiatives and policies,
Mhm.
priorities, let's put it that way, for 2023. But the most important ones I'll touch on. Uh, the Maryland Business Clergy
Mhm.
Partnerships initiatives are twofold:
Mhm.
community and business. There's kind of a bit of a separation, but a melting of the two to get one. But our number one priority is to expand our church leadership membership base
Mhm.
to a wider core faith-based and nonprofit representation to address increasing social and political issues within our state.
Mhm.
Now, also in that same number one priority category is the organization's commitment to expand its membership and leadership to include more social conscious business
Mhm.
owners as well, CEOs of corporations, corporate
Mhm.
officers, and individuals who are in the business area who can support the mission of the Maryland Business Clergy Partnership. And that's what we're all about, is expanding that. Now, our number two priority is to address our homeless and housing issues within the state of Maryland. I was just reading recently that in Baltimore alone, we have twice as many churches as homeless individuals. And I say that again. We have twice as many churches as homeless individuals. That's a
Mhm.
surprise. That's a surprise. That was a surprise to me. That meant that if we could have two churches to adopt one homeless person, we would, in theory, begin to solve the homeless issues within our communities. Not a difficult thing to do, but we don't have a focus on it. So therefore, every day we just ride past individuals who are homeless and we let them become someone else's problem. But in reality, the homeless are with us, and they'll be with us as long as we allow this phenomenon to take place and don't address it properly in our community. So that's why that is one of our top components. And I think on our past show that we did,
Mhm.
talked about the other list of which is the community list of priority, which was to address the high cost of
Mhm.
rental units, which leads to homelessness if you don't address it. And so those are the two main components. That's not all we're going to be doing in 2023.
Mhm.
that's going to be the top of our priority list going into 2023.
Well, to bounce off what you said, in my opinion, who have worked many years with the homeless and went into doing case management to transition them from a life of homelessness to a sustainable citizen in the community. However, in my opinion, I
Mm-hmm.
feel that homelessness has become a big business because there's a lot of funding that comes into the different jurisdictions and they're not used adequately or, in my opinion, not done in an appropriate way because it's more or less to house them without giving them the necessary support services and different things that they can transition from a life of homelessness to a life of sustainability. It's more of a warehouse to in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it is. So you did touch off on what your organization's priorities are. So what are your plans for increasing African American and minority business inclusion locally and at a state level?
Yeah, that's a big one. And we're advocating for adoption of legislation that will limit or prevent local and state governments from granting arbitrary waivers of MBE participation as a number one focus. Most of the business MBEs, most especially MBE companies, are certified through a central certification office, and that's MDOT.
Mm-hmm.
And through that certification allows them to then access um, lucrative government contracts. So if they are not certified by the
Mm-hmm.
state and they don't have access to those contract opportunities, then guess what? They become a sub-level company who works for years and years and really don't go anywhere. But one of the major problems we have found out that the companies that are certified, there's been a problem with waivers being granted for larger prime contractors
Mm-hmm.
to allow them to proceed with construction, even though there's a requirement, and that the requirement is put in place by each agency. And the state's requirement now is 29% of MBE participation. But we find that those agencies are doing much less than 50% of that. Some agencies are not hovering around 3 or 4 or 5%. And there seems to be a lackluster response coming from leadership
Mm-hmm.
in terms of addressing that issue. And in the capitalistic society, everybody forgets about the person below you and they focus on themselves. So if my bottom line looks good, then I'm doing okay. But what about the MBE guy down there? Well, hell, I've done what I had to do, and if I could get a waiver and didn't have to include him, then that means more profit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so that brings it to the next level, which is the improved oversight and enforcement at the state and local levels, because you have this mentality in business that business individuals are going full speed ahead and concerned about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the MBE program becomes a program that, instead of the state and local agencies having oversight and control or enforcement of it, it becomes a program that prime contractors and contractors, sometimes MBEs, but most of the time they're white controlled companies or other individuals who are not MBEs who control those companies. They then put in place their mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
and they then go around the process. They even set up front companies
Mm-hmm.
to suggest to the public and to some of the agencies that they're doing business with that they are doing business with MBEs. In reality, those companies that they are doing business with are, as defined by a friend of mine, just acting as a sheltered market company, which grants, or when you're looking at it from the outside, uh, you look and you think that just because on paper it has that they're doing 10 to 15, 20%. In
Mm-hmm.
reality, the money's only flowing through that company. And the company, large firm, prime contractor, will say, well, I've achieved my minority participation, but um, companies, especially in the construction area, where you got the HVAC companies, the plumbing companies, the electrical companies, site development companies, those companies are left out of lucrative contracts. And while you have a shell company who's
Mm-hmm.
acting in name alone, who's taking those contracts. Now, that's one of the things that we really need to change in the state of Maryland. And at a local level, too, as well, in the major counties like Prince George County. We
Mm-hmm.
need to look at that. And see, the Quandra, the problem with this is that uh, unless you've been a business person
Mm-hmm.
and you've been involved in it, or you have not been in the MBE field and don't understand that,
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes get drawn into the fact that this person who is getting these contracts and pretending to be an MBE contractor
Mm-hmm.
is that because he's able to write you a large contribution for your campaign, and you think that's good, and you wonder why the other company can't write you a large contribution as well. And the prime contractors are doing the same thing. So it becomes a vicious game of fighting for taxpayers' money that you pay as a
Mm-hmm.
community, but it's not coming back. And so what's not happening in your community, that your population levels are now not included in the job market because history has shown and studies have shown that African Americans companies hire African Americans, Asian companies hire Asian companies, and just goes Hispanic companies hire Hispanic companies. So it leads to a situation where if you don't have these companies that are focused on MB minority individuals or African Americans, the younger individuals, they're left without jobs. Now, measure the other thing that we are planning to do is create is measures to ensure that the state's newly approved recreation cannabis industry is accessible to homegrown businesses owned by African Americans and Native Americans who've been discriminated against for over 400 years. Now,
Mm-hmm.
focus in this area is that we've been doing MBE business since the '60s, and originally the MBE program was designed so that African American who had been enslaved for over 400 years,
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable, and Native Americans who have been discriminated against and have lost basically all of the land that we now sit on and are now sitting on reservations. Uh, the intent of the program was to kind of make those things right. And unfortunately, we're still fighting that same battle and we're losing tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to assure that now that we have Wes Moore in there as a governor, African American governor, we have another minority in there of persuasion of Asian persuasion that we'll have
Mm-hmm.
people in office who should be sensitive to our plight. And if they are not, then we're going to make sure that they are, and they will be. But I'm sure that that we will be successful with getting this done. Now it's a tough task for anybody. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
who you are, but the first thing comes is, do you have a commitment to do that? And then if you have that commitment, then we will make improvements. And what we're looking for is improvements. There is no one blanket solution, but we're looking for major improvements.
Okay. So when you mentioned some types of corruptions where there were, and because I was looking at when you were talking, I was listening to you and I was thinking about the airport, how some companies, well, one particular company had a facade that it was an MBE. However, it wasn't. And as a result, it made it in not a fair RFP process because they were getting accommodations when other MBEs were not. And as a result, gracefully, we have an opportunity to see right being done because we're glad that the current administration or the current DPW did not have the opportunity to vote, because if it had, it would have been confusion. Now, in your organization, do you set some sense of standards of how a business is supposed to operate? How a business is supposed to go after things that are done in the right way versus what has been done in the existing MBE process right now in the organization. Do you think that it's weak leadership, or do you think that that person needs to be removed?
The person needs to be removed.
Okay.
Well, look. I've learned over many years that the old saying, "A leopard doesn't change its stripes."
Yeah.
Yes, that applies. You pick up a snake, you knew it was a snake, and although it was a snake, it didn't bother it. Sooner or later, it's going to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things apply, and I don't blame the individual. I look at individuals' spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and not the face on the spirit, but the inner core of the spirit, and tell whether you're good, bad, or influence.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have some cores of negativity,
Mm-hmm.
and you feed that core of negativity on the inside, then you become who you are based on how much influence other individuals have over you in the
Mm-hmm.
industry. So you start off as this person out there who had good intentions. And your intentions were to go in and make a difference, and you got this nice position, and then you get this power that you can use, and you now got to a point where you are abusing the power, but you don't even realize you're abusing the power by awarding a contract to a friend or to someone who has less experience, and that you did not put in measures. Did you just initially in the contract documents or the RFPs, you didn't put in the language would allow that person to perform and to be
Mm-hmm.
legally performing? You
Mm-hmm.
decide to put that in later, and you use it as a method to steer a contract to a friend or to someone who is powerful in the state of Maryland. And as we reviewed that more and more, we looked at that and we found out that that contract had been that, because contract, that type of a contract, and it had those implications behind it. Because and the rationale for me saying this, and I've been in the business for a very, very long time. I'm the guy who stayed out there when nobody else did, and never gave up on minority business people at all. And I work with Arnold Jolivet and all the major guys out there who have who were in the industry from beginning, fought hard for a fair system to participate. But when it becomes unfair, and then someone selects you because you're black to be a front for a contract, major contract for 20 years, and then they put you in place for you to be that particular person so that they can benefit other people around you, and they move that up a level where you start to bring in individuals who are high-powered lobbyists, and you bring
Mm-hmm.
elected officials who have been, and you bring in bishops who are part of your formula and who will benefit from what you're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
you look at the criteria for participating and find out that that criteria was twisted to benefit you,
Mm-hmm.
you have to say, hey, look, why can't these individuals see what's wrong? Well, if you're a part of it, you can't see what's wrong. Your loyalty and your commitment goes to the person that that directed you to it, and now it's a pile of corruption that you've entwined yourself in. Now, in some cases, the individual who changed the RFP to benefit the company might be doing it because he wants to keep his job. And he might have kept his job if there was not certain implications, which would include the change of a governing person at the
Mm-hmm.
territorial level who is now new and now has an opportunity to look at really what was done and determine that the modus that you created, the fact that you eliminated one major component, which was experience, 7 years of experience, to eliminate as a criteria for the contract and put in place a much weaker component, which was you had to have 7 years of experience, not as a company, but as an individual. Now,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows that. I mean, I have 7 years of experience in the engineering firm, architectural firm, all of those. But if I don't have a firm that I've actually ran, and I'm given this mega contract to do this, it's an injustice to others who have spent 20 or more years as a corporation competing for me to come in and redirect their contract to go to me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the major thing, regardless of who the person is, white, black, green, or whatever color it is, it doesn't matter that that it becomes acceptable because of the color of that person. Color
Mm-hmm.
of that person doesn't matter. Fairness is fairness. Fairness would put you back into negotiating. Doing this wrong would put you back into negotiating a fair, unfair methodology, which will
Mm-hmm.
say that unfairness is okay. So let's use this route of unfairness, and where do
Mm-hmm.
you go from there? No, we can't let our system go down to corruption.
Okay. What collaborations are you creating with major organizations?
Well, let me say this: for collaborations, we decided that on this time around,
Mm-hmm.
we would focus on some of the major corporations coming in and being our partners and make a difference in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just mentioned three of the top collaboratives that we're looking into 2023 to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one collaborative entity was the Boys and Girls Club of Maryland. They are vital to our education system process, especially when the dollars is very, very scarce. Low income families don't have the money to pay for escalating costs of child care.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have the money to pay for computers. Our kids are lacking recreational um, opportunities
Mm-hmm.
in our communities. They get involved with everything else. And some of our major people who become successful in the world,
Mm-hmm.
who had to grow up in large, massive communities like in New York City and the Bronx. What saved them was having boys and girls clubs that they could go to in the evening, do the homework in the evening, but also stay in shape inside of the gym um, at no cost to them. So we have created a partnership with them, and hopefully we'll bring them on the show to talk, to have them to have a few words to talk about what they do in the state of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
The other component, which is ACUX
Mm-hmm.
Green Energy, who's looking to put a facility in Sparrows Point. that will provide 10,000 jobs and the job focus that they're going to commit to is to have 5,000 of those jobs to involve Baltimore inner city youth. So the guys who are on the corner who are trying to make a dollar on the corner, guess what? You'll have an opportunity to go and be trained, and you're going to be trained starting at a minimum of $40,000 to $60,000 while you're in training. And when you're out of training and you have the job, you're going to make in between $100,000 to $120,000 a year in this energy production. But this also, the company, which is such a tremendous company, it also becomes a company that offers a alternative to fossil fuel production. You know, gasoline. It creates a ethanol alternative that's first going to be used for powering major ships, major transportation modes such as tractor trailers, over the road trains, and that kind of thing, which will decrease the dependency on fuel coming from other countries like Russia and whoever have the oil, Saudi Arabia, those countries that can decide tomorrow morning to increase the price of a barrel of fuel and then change your cost of your fuel at the gas pump and go from $3.12 to $3.67, 80, whatever number that they decide they're going to do, or they can decide to hold the product off of the market and force the prices to go up. This I found is the most intriguing component that we created in terms of a collaboration. And our side would be to make sure that we identify businesses for the opportunities and also to provide jobs, creation of jobs in the green energy field. And the fact that we're going to be given first shot at those jobs means a lot. Now, I think the other one that we're talking about is one that's going to take us a little bit of time to work that out because some people like it and some people don't. You got to love the concept of a high-speed train that will take you from Union Station to New York in less than an hour. Heck, I can't even go from my home to downtown DC or to Baltimore in less than an hour. But this physically could take you to Baltimore, it would have a stop at Union Station, stop in Baltimore, Philly, and then New York in an hour. That is unbelievable. It takes the impact of traffic off of the major corridors, and it provides an alternative vehicle for transportation. And I'm an engineer by trade, so any improvements in terms of transportation, which is high speed rail, I think Baltimore suffers a bit because there was never a focus on putting the red line in Baltimore City, which would bring major development to Baltimore City, major development to Baltimore City, and Baltimore City would all of a sudden zoom to the top and to become a competitive city. And the impact of that is done just because we invested in transportation modes, which change the way we live, the way we do business, and also provide crucial jobs that are attached to that. Now, you're talking the number of jobs that are going to be created by this particular industry. The number's around 50,000 jobs that's going to be created. And those jobs would go to individuals in Baltimore City and the other surrounding counties, Washington, D.C., state of Maryland, all of those areas, which will be impacted tremendously. So grandkids, all of them would benefit for in terms of having industry experience. And some of these jobs are jobs that you don't even have to have a college degree
Mm-hmm.
in order to do them, and it pays well to do that. So those are the collaborations that I'm sharing with you at this particular point in time. We are constantly in the mode of creating collaborations that will benefit the community and benefit the individuals in which we represent in the community.
Well, I agree with you about energy because I was an energy advisor where I was able to assist customers, seniors, families, and getting upgrades. And a lot of those services are free in the state of Maryland. You just have to go through the Department of Housing Community Development for the state of Maryland, or you can go to Civic Works, who has an energy program, and they have a lot of different things that can help. They also have green jobs that you can actually get training for, and most of them are free. So I understand how important having those kind of jobs are, because it not only educates others, but it educates you so that you're able to help people reduce their utility bills. They're
Yes.
able to provide for their family. So I do strongly agree with that. So the next question: what is your organization's plans for improving political leadership and holding elected officials accountable?
Yeah. We have focused on that in terms of political reforms, including public financing for legislative campaigns
Mhm.
and special elections to fill vacancies as a number one legislative uh, priority in that area.
Mhm.
Now, it comes in two components. And the other component would be, what is the community? What are we doing
Mhm.
to assure those that this happens? Uh, you got a fair system, so public financing is a vehicle that's in place. Then individuals who are running, who are good, who are individuals that are transformative and challenge the system.
Mhm.
And if you challenge the system and you're challenging the industry, then a lot of money might be go to the candidate who is not doing it, who wants to keep status quo on it. This provides you for alternative
Mhm.
to having special interest groups who have lots of money to fund your campaign. And we've seen that happen throughout politics where the person who has the most money wins.
Mhm.
And quite often it's absolutely true. But this initiative will start to make it a little bit easier to level the playing field through public finance. Whether that's something that will take place is something that we will be pushing for
Mhm.
in order to do that. But the other thing that's vitally important in political process and political leadership is that for many years we've been stuck in this mode that's uh, probably um, I would say other states have been in that mode too, but not to the degree that state of Maryland have in terms of have a fixation on one person leadership who control major black communities across the board.
Mhm.
Uh, and when you become so powerful as a president of the Senate that you are now able to control senators in Baltimore City, Prince George County, and Montgomery County, and if you utilize that power that you have,
Mhm.
and you utilize it with political favors in Annapolis,
Mhm.
then you have a real vital tool that you can control not only major companies moving into this state in your district
Mhm.
you're from, but you can control major projects moving into districts that you're not at. So for years, we've had that kind of control where major projects such as MGM, um, the Baltimore's casinos, uh,
Mhm.
throughout that, if you didn't do the right thing through the president of the Senate, then you weren't going to have the opportunity to have one of these facilities located there.
Mhm.
And the same thing when it came down to major projects, and I just want to define this one because it's vitally important, is that when it came down to those are gaming facilities in the most recent legislation, there was sports betting that we tried to implement and put in place something that would guarantee or assure us, at least make it possible that we could get a black company owned company at the table, and didn't happen there. And so this year,
Mhm.
we're going to be pushing the General Assembly to make sure we do get a African American company. We'll be specific on that, an African American company at the table on sports betting. We're going to push for laws within the community to do that. Now, what on the other hand would be uh, individuals who we deem that are not being not accountable
Mhm.
to a process and not accountable to the community. How do we hold those individuals accountable? How do we make them accountable? Uh, then you can try means and methods to do that, and if they are controlled by outside sources
Mhm.
who prop them up and put them in control, then you have to expose them for what they are, and you have to let their voter base know who they are, and you have to then inspire their voter base to come out to make sure that they are not reelected. And I think we talked about that early in the show,
Mhm.
is the report card mechanism that we would use in order to identify them and keep a record of their track record of what they're doing. Who are they really working for? Are they working for the black community? When I say black community, I mean if you're representing Baltimore City, and Baltimore City is 60, 70% African American, I think African Americans should benefit from the fact that that is your elected official.
Mhm.
They should be bringing to the table empowerment tools that benefit you, and not a entity that decides that they're going to come into your community, take advantage of an opportunity, make money, and then move out of your community. Uh, and you as elected official are used in the particular process, and your citizens don't benefit, the voters don't benefit. You have a useless political structure. So we have to change that. And I use the example of Baltimore City, but that's Prince George County, that's Charles County, any other area that you're at, where you have people who have been elected by their community to deliver. And it's just not delivering
Mhm.
mainly and doing a job and getting a paycheck for doing a job. It's that behind those closed doors, the people put you in the office do this, but you know that the voters really are not following you. So when
Mhm.
you go there, you sell your vote to somebody else, and then you come back to your community and you then go campaigning again. We want to create a vehicle and mechanism that 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 makes our voters a intelligent group of individuals,
Mhm.
so that they know really what happens and how government works. When we were in high school, we had to do civics
Mhm.
as a class. I mean, we didn't have to, but there was elective that we individuals could choose to do. And quite often, what's not happening in our school system is that we're not getting the opportunity to understand how government really works, and how you, as a young person, can influence your government and become a
Mhm.
leader. I saw this yesterday. This youngest black mayor in Arkansas,
Hmm.
18 years old, who's become the youngest African American to be elected to the mayor of a town. And I thought that was fantastic. The fact that you had who focused on being in political power, learning political power, and doing that. And I think we need that more in our community than anything else. But the top thing for us who are in position now is to hold our leadership accountable, and if they're not doing the job, work to get them out.
Hmm.
And that's where
Okay.
we are. That's where we are.
Okay. Now, when you talked about accountability, and you used Baltimore City, I think that on a as a constituent of Baltimore City, I really think that government, the infrastructure of Baltimore City, needs to be wiped out and start over. Um, I really believe that uh, a lot of the people that we do choose, many of them are doing a great job, but I think sometimes we think that most of our politicians come into office as a career, and it's supposed to be a representation of communities, of neighborhoods. Another thing is, I think a lot of the accountability in Baltimore City is not, it's not done. It really isn't, because you have so many politicians who have learned how to have relationships with different constituents, but not do anything. So the accountability in Baltimore City is greatly needed. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the new leadership that's coming into Baltimore City. I want to give them a fair shake. However, a lot of times we look at our communities. We have so many people out here that are struggling for jobs, for food. A lot of people who are homeless. They don't have affordable housing. They don't have they don't have the leadership in city council. Some are even in general assembly that are actually advocating and doing the job to, represent their different communities in Baltimore City, because Baltimore City doesn't see themselves as communities like Prince George's County does. They see themselves as neighborhoods, and people will go out during the political season and say vote for me, and then you don't see them again. So it is greatly needed that accountability is pivotal in Baltimore City. We need to have that, because it just seems like people are just doing things for their benefit and not community. And it's in, for example, Baltimore City. We have our charter, but
Mhm.
how can we have a city that never had ownership of its police force for over 150 years? How
Yes.
can we be a city that doesn't have governorship over its schools? So it's like we sell off our city, we sell off our land, but we're not looking at our constituents.
Hmm.
So,
That is so true, and it goes back when you do that, and you also sell it off to major real estate companies, and you give them authority to run the government versus you run the government. Then you create this dilemma because you, as as legislative leader, you are elected to represent the community, but because you've accepted money from certain people, then you can't
mhm,
do that because now you're afraid that the money that you've taken is going to be pulled back from you and it's going to go to another candidate. And so it's a vicious cycle of electing pawns to be put into a position. And as you said earlier, being in a position, just filling it and doing that. And one example that I thought that really showed the picture of what would have happened if we had elected Herschel Walker to the Senate, we would have the largest puppet in the world sitting in the Senate, and him probably out on whatever he does, but not in the office doing anything, only as a person who punches a button that somebody else tells him. Now, that's bad. That's bad, and it's bad because the system even suggested, or we allowed the system to suggest that as African Americans can be subjected to this role, that in terms of voters that I can another community can put your person in place, put you there. I can do that now, put and defeat the person that you really want
Mhm.
to be there, but I can make it look like this person that I'm putting there as a person that's not from your community, money that's not from your community, and make it look like that's your guy. I mean, these getting mind games are being played with us so tremendously, but that was an obvious uh, uh, picture of how the system works, and it was exposed tremendously. Now, we got out of that because Senator Warnock was elected, but the magnitude of people, because it was still a control, a tight race at 85, 90,000 votes, a very small number of votes, difference between the two candidates. Now this thing rolls down more, Quandra, because it rolls down to affect a small individual. So when you put this, real estate companies control things at that particular point in time. I'll give one example. Uh, if you know the average, and I think we had talked about that on the show, average cost of rent for a two-bedroom unit in the nation's capital is $1,828 per month. Now, uh, the city has gentrified. DC has gentrified.
Mhm.
So now this is a surprise. It's $1,828, while in suburban areas such as Charles County and other metro areas are $1,928, higher than DC numbers are. But that monthly number of benefit in the cities benefit the different population. The
Mhm.
shift in population had moved out to the suburbs, so black folk are living in the suburbs where they are paying a higher cost for rental. Okay, and so we are suggesting that we need to investigate and study this issue on a local and state level to ensure that there's no price gouging, and to recommend to our General Assembly to create a rent stabilization or oversight board as a possible solution.
Mhm.
Those are the things that we find that when you look at your politics and you study your politics, there is probably something happening behind the scenes that you or me are not aware of, that's being done because
Mhm.
somebody wants to make money and they want to control your political process in order to make money. So those are the things that we have decided. That's what we're going to be working on in the year 2023 to make a difference.
Okay, so we have 7 minutes to go. Um, but I do want to, one of the things that also with community, community in Baltimore City, community in Baltimore County, community in Prince George's County, rent is out of control because yes, $1,953 you said. However, there are certain neighborhoods that you are paying for an efficiency $2,500. So depending on
Yes.
where you live,
Yes.
what neighborhood you are, it is a price gouging. Now you did say that you're going to be Maryland Business Clergy Partnership is going to be supporting certain legislation in 2023. And
Yeah.
what are they? What
Okay.
things are you going to be focusing on?
Yeah, we're going to be supporting on legislation. Just on that note, we're going to be supporting on legislation to make the Maryland's tax code fair and
Mm-hmm.
equitable for low and medium income individuals entering the job market and who are experiences difficulties with affording an apartment and almost impossible to purchase a home. So we have to look at the adjustments and put in factors which will change that dynamic and that equation. We've already been hit by that market 10,
Mm-hmm.
15 years and been taken advantage of by the high interest loans on our homes and forcing foreclosure and destroy the credit of many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to change. And at the state Maryland level, we can do that, and we can work with the tax numbers to make it happen. So we're going to be absolutely focusing on that. We are going to be focused. We are supporting bills that will increase the availability of affordable housing in the state. including a measure that would make it easier for tenants to sue their landlords. We're supporting legislation that will close loopholes and police accountability. The bill that passed in 2021 and to strengthen laws that limit the number of juveniles who can be tried as adults in criminal cases. And we're going to be supporting proposed legislation that will expedite the state's adoption of a $15 an hour minimum wage. So that's just a few of the legislation that we're focusing on. And I think on the last year we talked with Senator Ellis, Arthur Ellis, and quite often, and as he said, and a lot of our elected officials have said, "Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not, and I appreciate him so much because he was able to say, no, I was not. There are things, some certain things that I don't know. I'm not an expert at. So I rely on people. Now, I think your show and your shows, the shows like Donnie, gives us an opportunity to go on and talk about those things, bring those individuals back on, and have them to enter into a dialogue, often a debate about how other individuals see the paradigm, and hopefully shift the paradigm to where it's more equitable and it works for everyone and just not a chosen few people. And hopefully Maryland Business Clergy can play a major role in 2023 and beyond in making that happen, along with the major news and media sources in the Black community like yours.
Thank you. Now, if a church or business wanted to get involved with Maryland Business Clergy, how would they get in contact with you?
That's easy. You can go to our website at Business Clergy Partnership.com, www.marylandbusinessclergypartnership.com, or reach us directly at 240-286-8567, and we'll be available. And we're looking for new memberships. So we were looking for establishing committees to do these type of things over the next year. We need individuals, we need churches, we need businesses who understand how to do this. And I want to bring this one up. This is one good initiative that I didn't want to spill out there, but I need to say this, that we're working on. In the Black communities, we see young kids being killed so young, and we know they don't have insurance policies on them, because that's one of the things that the parents know. None of them never thought that the kid would die. But then it comes down to them being buried, and they can't afford a insurance. They can't afford to pay. So who picks up the cost? We're working on a system that will change that. That will be able to involve them in a way that they can have that insurance coverage. It's not much. You don't need much. $2,500 to $10,000 for insurance, and we can take care of that. But we'll keep that posted on our future shows on how we're going to go about getting that done within the church structure.
Well, thank you, Joe, for joining us for Community Connections Resources in Gardening. It is very important that you support Black media such as Black USA News. You can check us out on Monday through Sunday, where tomorrow Mike Keeney will be doing 60 Minutes in Black America. And then Monday, he's going to be doing Wake Up Baltimore. And then Donnie Glover, our publisher, our leader for Black USA News, will be hosting his show Monday through Friday. So I hope that you can join us every week. Next week, we're going to have Cynthia Mann, who is the executive director of Forest Heights CDC, and she's doing some great work in the community. On that note, I want to say thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful weekend and safe week. Goodbye.